us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order.
America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world. And no one will keep that light from shining. Today our nation saw evil, the very worst of human nature, and we responded with the best of America, with the daring of our rescue workers, with the caring for strangers and neighbors who came to give blood and help in any way they could. To kill innocent life, who had relations with Zarqawi. Imagine what the world would be like with him in power. The idea is to try to help change the Middle East. Now look. Part of the reason we went into Iraq was the main reason we went into Iraq at the time was we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. It turns out he didn't, but he had the capacity to make weapons of mass destruction. But I also talked about the human suffering in Iraq, and I also talked the need to advance a freedom agenda. And so my answer to your question is that imagine a world in which Saddam Hussein was there, stirring up even more trouble in a part of the world that had so much resentment, so much hatred, that people came and killed 3,000 of our citizens. You know, I've heard this theory about,
There'll be a time for politics, but you've also said you wanted to change the tone of Washington. Howard Dean recently seemed to muse aloud whether you had advanced knowledge of 9/11. Do you agree or disagree with the RNC that this kind of rhetoric borders on political hate speech?
Yeah. Look, there's time for politics. And, it's time for politics. And, it's an absurd insinuation.
In that case, sir, can I follow up on something unrelated?
In 2001, after the World Trade Center bombing, my detachment was alerted to deploy to Afghanistan to conduct unconventional warfare operations. In 2001, after the World Trade Center bombing,
Hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of it.
Afghanistan. I mean, let's just get real about it. A plan to overthrow the Taliban government in Afghanistan was put on George Bush's desk September 10th, 2001 by Condoleezza Rice. This is not me saying it. This is what Bob Woodward said based upon his interviews of many people in the Bush
You
administration.
people are unbelievable. You dump a mess like this in my lap and then you come whining to me and say, where is our funding? Well, I'll tell you where it is. Can you say health care?
September 11th, they had a plan to overthrow the Taliban government. September 11th happens, and then they tell you we have to deal with this government because of September 11th. Just like the war in Iraq, this is a war that is based upon domination and control and should not be fought and should not be supported. So what the U.S. should do is pull out now. Obama cannot pull out because he is trying to save an imperialist capitalist system. And if you're an imperialist and you start pulling out of countries where you're fighting wars, you then send a message to other countries.
1993, World Trade Center bombing, remember? During the trial, one of the bombers claimed the CIA had advanced knowledge. The diplomat who issued the terrorist visa was CIA. It's not unthinkable they paved the way for the bombing, purely to justify a budget increase.
You're telling me that you're gonna fake some terrorist thing just to get some money out of Congress?
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Hennessy, I have no idea how to fake killing 4,000 people. So we're just gonna have to do it for real. Don't blame it on me.
If the official story is true, and an astoundingly successful sneak attack from diabolical Muslims caught America totally off guard, then the White House surely must be highly motivated to turn heaven and earth, to use one of their own favorite cliches, to investigate the events of that day as quickly and thoroughly as possible. The White House must rush to appoint a respected chairman and commissioners, give them the widest powers to call witnesses, spare no expense. Except for the Reichstag fire, that's how it's usually done. 6 days after the sinking of the Titanic, a chairman is appointed to head an investigation. 9 days after Pearl Harbor, the first of 4 investigative commissions is struck. The JFK assassination, the Challenger disaster, 7 days each. How many days after...
What did Iraq have to do with what?
The attack on the World Trade Center.
Nothing.
To conduct unconventional warfare operations.
Yes, theory. It just doesn't hold water as far as I'm concerned. The terrorists attacked us and killed 3,000 of our citizens before we started the freedom agenda in the Middle East. What did Iraq have to do with what?
The attack on the World Trade Center.
Nothing. What did Iraq have to do with what?
The attack on the World Trade Center.
Namely for
Nothing.
terrorism. Now, we have seen the bloody marks left by international terrorists all around the world, of course. Some of these scenes you see here. Now, some of the names responsible: Sabri al-Bana, that's the Palestinian name, really, of Abu Nidal. He's believed the architect of the Madrid and Rome airport bombings over 5 years ago, of course. Another name, of course, that comes to mind: Muammar Gaddafi, Libya's strongman. Both of these men uncharacteristically quiet during the Gulf crisis so far.
What did Iraq have to do with what?
The attack on the World Trade Center.
Nothing. What did Iraq have to do with what?
The attack on the World Trade Center. In 2001,
Nothing.
after the World Trade Center bombing. In 2001, after the World Trade Center bombing.
Have a sense, if we imagine the kind of world we would face if the people who bombed the mess hall in Mosul, or the people who did the bombing in Spain, or the people who attacked the United States in New York, shot down the plane over Pennsylvania and attacked the Pentagon, shot down the plane over Pennsylvania, shot down the plane over Pennsylvania.
And he came back again. He just got arrested again.
For journalists to show what we can do and to regain, perhaps, should this reached up last year, should this reached up. We have stripped down symmetrical collapse into the building's footprint because demolition weighs.
What did Iraq have to do with what?
The attack on the World Trade Center.
Nothing. Except for it's part of, and nobody's ever suggested in this administration that Saddam Hussein ordered the attack. Iraq was the lesson of September 11th is take threats before they fully materialize, Ken. Nobody's ever suggested that the attacks of September the 11th were ordered by Iraq. I have suggested, however, that resentment and the lack of hope create the breeding grounds for terrorists who are willing to use suiciders to kill to achieve an objective. I have made that case. And one way to defeat that,
what is perfectly symmetric is the steady, advancing leading edge of the explosions. It accelerates down the two visible faces of the building ahead of the collapse at ever-increasing speed. This is what one would expect if the buildings were brought down using a sequence of computer-timed explosions.
Years after years after years, we support a sanctions program
that's designed to stop. The punishment is it's aimed at stopping the Iranians from doing something we know they're not doing. For me, and as I wrote in the article, the analogy between what they're doing, what Obama's doing with Iran, is very close to what Bush and Dick Cheney, the vice president then, did to Iraq. That is, they wanted to punish, they wanted to make a case against Iraq.
The United States of America is a terrorist base of operations. The United States of America is a friend to their evil plans. We are barbaric criminals joined in this operation by our staunch friend, Great Britain. The United States of America is an enemy to the starving and suffering men and women and children of Afghanistan. This military action is a part of our campaign against 1 billion worldwide who practice the Islamic faith.
It's a great political accomplishment. It's actually led to the President of the United States being beatified almost more than, the Pope's, kind of accolades to John Paul. This is, Obama is cashing in on this for everything that it's worth. And you'll notice in his speech last night, he kept stressing several times, I ordered, I promised, I such and such. It was clearly done for, the statement was clearly worded for political advantage, and it produced the proper result because most people see bin Laden as Al-Qaeda when it in fact isn't. I mean, we just had a big bombing in Morocco. We just had a broken up basic attack in Germany, which suggests that, bin Laden, it was not really the only person in Al-Qaeda, but in fact there are these groups.
Well, I think the whole operation has raised more questions than it has answered. So, of course, it is mafia style to discharge a dead body somewhere, dump him somewhere. And something the President Obama has said on this issue is also contradictory. He said that last summer, 2010, he had ordered his people to go after Osama bin Laden, go after the top tier of so-called Al-Qaeda. But in fact, he had said that already, this very same thing, on December 1st, when he, in 2009, more than half a year earlier than that, when he had announced the huge rise in American troops for Afghanistan, more than 30,000 guys, all in all, nearly 40,000 more soldiers from NATO.
And stay the course. Listen, we've never been stay the course, George. We will stay the course. 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 We're just going to stay the course. We're going to stay the course, and we must stay the course. We will stay the course. This country will stay the course. We will stay the course. We will stay the course, but we will stay the course. We'll stay the course. We'll stay.
A new world order where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
Watch the building being demolished on purpose knows that if you're going to do this, you have to get at the under-infrastructure of a building and bring it down.
And the rule of law. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge. Now we can see a new world coming into view.
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices. Secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing, have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat.
4, 3, 2, 1.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world.